Hey, I am actually making a response video. Now, whether the person sees this or not, I don't know. It would be nice if they did. Um, but if they don't get round to it, that's fine. I'm not making it as some sort of like, I think sometimes people make response videos and demand the person sees it and things like that. I'm not interested in that. I'm just making it as a point of kind of um direct comparison or direct reference, I guess you could say, to a video that is out there. So if the person sees it, that's great, and if she doesn't, that's fine, because there's issues I'm going to be bringing up that can be for general thinking anyway. I don't often make response videos, but yeah. So here it goes. The responses to someone called the English Eccentric. Now she has a video entitled something like "I used to be an SJW." And she's just been explaining. I've watched another video that took her by surprise how many people responded to that. Um, I mean, I responded to it. It was an interesting video, and I think it really showed how people's thinking can change. She made another video entitled "People Don't Understand Conservatism," and it's that one I want to respond to because I've touched on the SJW issue before. So English eccentric, if you do watch this, thank you in advance, and if you don't, that's fine. But rest assured, this video is not to attack you. It's, you know, for what it's worth, I think you come across as reflective and open-minded, or at least um, thoughtful. Especially, I mean, you say yourself you're a teenager, so given your age, that's impressive, and it isn't that common these days. But there are a few things I want to follow up on that particular video about conservatism. Now, from the outset, I want to say I'm not a conservative. So just to be upfront about my position, I'm not a conservative, and in this video, I will be discussing areas I disagree with the conservatives on, what I dislike about certain conservative thinking. But this is not about, it's not an attack on you personally. But I do want to follow up some of the points that you made. Um, you quoted Benjamin Disraeli's philosophy of one nation conservatism, i.e., this idea that society kind of looks after itself, people look after each other, and it's sort of a paternalistic society, um, i.e., it promotes the notion of self responsibility. Now, very few people are going to disagree with that. And of course, 140 years later, Ed Miliband spoke of one nation Labour. So that's quite a testament to Disraeli's legacy that 140 years later, a politician from a rival political party would be endorsing that sort of thinking. So the principles are very sound. But here's the thing with a lot of ideology, it's all very well in terms of how it sounds, but the implementation is what matters. So what people have to go on is the track record of the Conservative Party. And I think that's something that you need to understand. There's another aspect to this. I did notice you were being a little bit defensive about conservatism in your video, and that's understandable. The thing is, when you become sympathetic to a political party, and I don't know if you're a member or not, but when you join a political party, it kind of becomes like you might argue with your brother or sister, but you're still going to defend them outside the family, right? So by the same token, you may not agree with everything that your party says and does, but you will still defend them to outsiders. And it becomes kind of, when you nail your colours to the mast like that, you can fall into a trap where your only interest in it is in standing up for the party, um, rather than addressing or really trying to understand why people feel the way they do about it. And with respect, it's too simplistic to just say, "Oh, it's socialist propaganda that says the Tories are wicked." Certainly, socialists do that, but that doesn't explain how many people, such as myself, who identify with the political centre, also have a problem with the Conservative Party. I can't stand this trend of social justice warriors, and I totally resonate with the things you were saying there. And I think you raise a lot of good points about what it's like to be right leaning in university. For the record, I will always defend the right for young conservatives to speak their mind, um, even if I disagree with them. And I do think it would be a very difficult time if you are a conservative or centre leaning in university these days. Um, I'm going to try and make this video as concise as possible, but there is a number of things I want to touch on. Okay, so I mentioned that one nation conservatism is fine. Very few people are going to argue with that. But what really matters is the track record and the implementation of ideas, right? Um, let me present a scenario. If someone is unemployed, they're claiming job seekers allowance or universal credit. It's no good telling that person, "Oh, you misunderstand the Conservative Party," because what they have to go on is their own experience of the Conservative Party, and what they see is a party that is telling the wider public, "We will make the unemployed work. We will scapegoat the unemployed." That's what they do, and I have to say it's utterly despicable. And there's been times that really has angered me something awful because I think it's unforgivable for a powerful political party to scapegoat people against each other in that sort of way. Now, that is not the same as saying they shouldn't talk about the issues. I'm not saying that for a second. There are people who abuse the system, and I've always accepted that. I've always acknowledged that. What I don't accept is collective punishment. And I mean, this isn't unique to the Tories. New Labour done it as well. But our welfare system was set up to provide people with a safety net, but it's become a rather callous system that's degrading, that treats people like criminals automatically. It's like an assumption of guilt. Because there have been people who have abused the system, anyone who's been through a job centre will know what I'm talking about. And I feel that a lot of conservative leaning people just don't get it. Their perception is, oh, well, they're unemployed, so they need to be, you know, they're lazy, or they need to be put into a corner where they're being told, oh, it's you have to have self responsibility and so on. Most people don't take any pleasure from going through that process, and when it includes workfare, this is what really angers people. It's workfare is exploitation. There's no other way to argue that because it's being forced to do a job without getting a salary. I mean, and granted, this is not the majority of claimants who go through this, but fundamentally, that's what it is. It is telling people to work, and I know because I've been through this, without getting a wage. That's wrong. And that is, so you cannot translate one nation conservatism to someone in that position because, from their point of thinking, understandably, they're saying, well, why should I be grateful to the Conservative Party? You're punishing me when life is already hard enough as it is. It's not fun being unemployed. You're constantly anxious about money. You know, what infuriates me about the right wing tabloids is they take extreme cases. The Daily Mail, the Sun, they all do this. They take extreme cases of some reckless father who has, I don't know, 40 children by 8 different women and is claiming thousands in welfare. The point I would make is that is more the exception than the norm. Of course, it's awful. Of course, it's wrong. But I think a lot of conservative thinkers really believe that all claimants are like that. So when they have this preset prejudice, then of course they're going to support a party that's saying, let's get tough on the unemployed. And I think it's despicable the way the Tories do that. They have these big billboards up during the 2010 election saying, we will make the unemployed work. So the point I would make is, also, people see double standards with conservative thinking. When you see conservative MPs, and I appreciate the expenses scandal, there was a big overhaul after that. But this is just talking about history. When people saw conservative MPs lecturing the unemployed about getting back to work, and telling them that they need to take responsibility. But then they were claiming for all sorts of expenses out of the taxpayers' money. I mean, that's a height of hypocrisy. Also, how do you translate one nation conservatism and we're all in this together when the top CEOs of failed banks are getting massive bonuses at a time when millions of people are struggling? This isn't about communism. I'm not talking about this divide the wealth between the people. That's not what I'm talking about. But when the Conservative Party simply can't understand how that division makes people feel, then it's no good saying that people don't understand conservatism. So, as a starting point, I understand why you would be defensive because, like I said, I've been in party politics, but it's no good just saying people don't understand it. Maybe you need to consider how would I feel if I was claimant? How would I feel if I was in that position? If wider society was looking down on me as some sort of lazy dole scrounger, if job centre advisors were being openly rude to your face, it's and I do think that the follow up to this is that there is an empathy deficit with a lot of conservatives. I don't believe that individual conservatives are bad people, not for a second. I've met some Tories who are very amicable, decent, even likable people. But I do think that many conservatives do give the impression that they lack a basic empathy for people who are struggling. And I think it comes down to this idea that they have this notion one size fits all. So they sort of think, if I can do it, so can that unemployed person, so can that homeless person. They don't recognize that people have different lives, people have different life experiences. And I think that's something that's fundamentally missing, or it's a fundamental flaw in conservative thinking. They do have this attitude, one size fits all. So anyone who's struggling, conservatives tend to think, oh, well, it must be their own fault because they're too lazy or they are um, this, that, or the other. They'll deny that, of course, but that really is how it comes across. I actually got a letter from Theresa May when she was Home Secretary, and I made this point to her. Actually, it would have been when she was working pension shadow minister way back. Um, I still have that letter, and she was quite defensive. She said she basically blamed the media for the perception people have of the Conservative Party. And she assured me that they didn't look down on the unemployed and so on. But the point is, when the Tories are quoting the Daily Mail and the Sun, and they're going out of their way to pander to those papers in terms of the rhetoric, then people can be forgiven for thinking that is the perception. Now, there's that fundamental. I just don't think they understand that. There's areas I agree with the Conservatives on. I do agree with the fundamental principle of meritocracy over tokenism. I agree with the fact that at least, even if the implementation hasn't been good, at least they have the right idea about crime. That is, that crime can destroy people's lives, and people who inflict suffering on their fellow citizens need to be held to account. The Conservatives, far more than Labour or the Liberal Democrats, never mind the Greens, they do understand that. They may not have got it exactly right, but at least they understand it. And at least they understand and have empathy. I mentioned a minute ago they don't have empathy in a lot of things. I think they do have empathy for victims of crime, um, at least more than the other parties. Um, Patriotism is something I would probably align myself with the Conservatives on, and this is not something I would have said 10 years ago. Their robust defence of the British Union, this United Kingdom, I believe the Tories are sincere about that. Theresa May, in her maiden speech as Prime Minister, said, we are, after all, a Conservative and Unionist party. That's something I appreciate. So I'm not hardcore against every single aspect of Toryism. And this is something where I would criticise certain self described socialists. I think a lot of people, especially in places where I live, well, I live in Sunderland, right? If you live in the northeast of England or parts of Yorkshire or the northwest or Wales, parts of London even, Scotland. I feel a lot of people feel they have to hate the Conservative Party because their parents did. I really do believe that. And it's something that I find unfortunate because I don't mind the people hating the Conservative Party if they can actually follow up and explain why. But it's a bit like hear these sweeping statements: the Conservatives hate the working class. Well, where I do agree with you, English eccentric, you pointed out that a lot of Conservatives are working class, right? So that's true. John Major was working class, and there's been other examples. So I feel the whole class thing is a little bit of a distraction, and Labour do constantly bring this up, but I honestly think the class situation is less of an issue today than other social divisions. I think the bigger social division, I think there is an economic social division in this country. The Northeast, where I live, is definitely economically not, it's definitely poorer than other regions. But I honestly don't think, because you get this concept of blue Labour, that is working class Labour voters, when you push them on issues like immigration and crime and the European Union, they actually come out with some pretty conservative opinions. Socially conservative, that is. And then there would be conservatives who live in big cities, who speak several languages, who are cosmopolitan, they have European friends, and they would probably have very different views on some of those issues. So I'm very interested in the idea of blue Labour, red Tory, although within both parties they're controversial, especially within Labour. Um, the whole concept is controversial. Anyway, I'll round it up there. Please don't take this video as a personal attack, English eccentric. If you're watching this, you probably won't anyway. But I do think, though, if you're going to defend a political party, it's no good saying people just don't understand. It's a bit like feminists who say, oh, you don't understand feminism. Well, you have to understand why people are coming from the position that they're coming from. And it isn't just because they're SJWs or they're coming from, or the socialists. They might not be. It might be their own honest experience of the Conservative Party. Thanks for watching.